So this is going to sound like a bit of a crazy question, but I hope you can
Mhm.
follow where
Yep.
I'm going with it. So when we were at ESPN, as you know, I've been suspended. I've gotten into my
Hmm.
trouble a time or two. Stephen A's gotten into trouble. A whole host of people at ESPN have gotten in trouble. You know who hasn't gotten in trouble? Yo has never gotten
Not
in trouble.
once.
Never been, not one time, right? Now, you're somebody who we may say things differently, but I consider us to be very like minded.
Yes.
So, Bo, what the am I doing wrong? And you clearly are doing right.
Two of the best at ESPN traded stories, that being Jemele Hill and Bomani Jones.
When you got the 2017 suspension, I called John Skipper. I wanted an explanation because I didn't think that there had been an explanation. I wanted an explanation. And the way that I positioned the question to him for this explanation was, I need to know what exactly it is that Jemele did that merited punishment so that I can make sure that I don't do the same thing. Right? Which, by the way, was a worthwhile reason to ask that question. Like, what are the
Oh,
rules
very
here?
much so.
Let's pause here for a moment. There's many reasons we support Bomani Jones, but this is next level because it shows the grace, the I have your back mentality that this dude possesses. And quite honestly, it's rare in this industry. Onward.
John Skipper's response to me was, and I quote, I don't have to worry about you saying anything like that. I had a meeting
That
with
would be
him.
true.
Yeah, I had a meeting with him like 2 years before, and he remarked on my ability to be provocative without getting into the trouble. I have a hard time explaining exactly how it works, but I know the things you can and cannot say and what trips off the outrage meter.
Such an interesting exchange. He would then give insights on his social media activity after Hill had the remainder of her contract bought out for her tweets on Donald Trump, none of which was inaccurate, by the way.
Because I got terrified. I changed my whole get down online after you and the white supremacist thing. And the reason was I was looking at the responses you were getting, and I'm like, yo, this is very organized. This is very orchestrated. And most of these people aren't real. And when I saw that and I realized that everything that swirled around it was not about like the foundation, the fundamentals of what you said, but it was just about the reaction and that the reaction could be manufactured. I was like, I'm out. Because you guys know how I used to get down on Twitter. It's been done for like 5 years at this point. Because I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I see what's going on here, and this is terrifying.
Totally understandable. More from Jones.
I try to get into spaces that are inarguable and present as many things as I can as questions that require people to say what the answer is and then wind up going from there. But the other one is honestly, and this is a very big thing, an Eric Rydholm thing that I think I'd concluded myself, but he put it clearest. Describe actions, not people. Someone has done something that is racist. The person is not racist. One thing I definitely figured out too, there is nothing to gain from calling somebody a racist in the public space because it doesn't matter whether or not they are or are not a racist. That part doesn't matter, right? Whether you say they are racist, all of a sudden it turns into a referendum of is this person a racist, right? Like, that fight, that winds up not being worth it. I know a bad fight when I see one. If I got to think twice, I don't do it once. That's become my rule.
However, if someone is throwing around the dog whistles, it's different strokes. You dig? There's another part we must play, and it involves this shirt that the right and even libs hated for no damn reason. The Caucasian shirt.
I think that might have been the most that I ever seen you on that.
Even that wasn't actually controversial. Like as
No,
I
it wasn't.
look back on that day and everything else, people are like, oh man, people were so mad at you. No, they weren't. Like I'm telling you, I never received an onslaught of people being angry. That's why nobody, I think Dave Roberts talked to me that day very quickly. I never got a phone call. I never got a lecture. My agent got a few calls like down the line because nobody knew what to say to me. People felt like I did something wrong. They felt like I was being mischievous. It just didn't feel right, but nobody could explain it. So nobody
Right.
ever said a thing to me about it because what did I do wrong? nobody had an answer. I wasn't even thinking about it that deep. Why? Because I knew there was nothing wrong. I just didn't think it was a big deal.
Anyone who hated it couldn't explain why they hated it, or if they did, they would show their true colors. It was a brilliant move that will live on forever.
All right, so look, there are a few points to hit on here. First, Jemele Hill was vindicated. She got ousted, essentially pushed out, because she said something about Donald Trump. That's true. He refused to condemn the endorsement of David Duke, former Grand Wizard of the Triple K. Not an endorsement you want. And then we saw recently him quoting the Big H from Germany, and even Republicans go in front of the cameras, major news outlets. They're like, no, he didn't mean that. He meant democratic policies. And then Trump comes out the next day and says, no, it wasn't democratic policies. I was quoting him. That's my guy. This is the same dude that had a Big H book and all of his speeches inside of that book on or near his nightstand. He read them, kept them quite close. The rhetoric that he has used resembles white supremacy. But Jemele Hill saying it is a step too far, apparently. And that's why she was bought out. 75% of her contract. In an interview she gave with Vlad TV, she said was bought out. And Bomani, covering his bases, but also trying to get an explanation, it was quite clear that ESPN just simply was not ready to meet the moment. And now you're seeing where they are currently. Because in the past, they had that dude, I want to say many other things, but I'm told I can't, Clay Travis. And you probably know where this is going. All he would do is bash ESPN. That's all he would do. MS ESPN, liberal sports, woke sports. This is a guy that's a former Obama voter that has shown you who he is and what he is about. But he knew once he started going after ESPN, the floodgates were going to open because conservatives, the snowflakes that they are, truly believe that they have zero representation. When Jemele Hill will even tell Richard Deitch in a podcast that ESPN is actually very conservative. People on the outside looking in have no idea, but they would be surprised if some were to peel back that curtain. And so they really latched on to Clay Travis. And he's like, oh, all I have to do is call out ESPN, even if it's illogical and unfounded. Bet. So he did. And he saw a meteoric rise in his company, with Outkick. And then what happened? He sold it to Rupert Murdoch for millions of dollars. See how easy it is? See how the game is played? It's so simple with this audience. So simple. Look at Colby Covington. Perfect example. Was going to get cut by the UFC. Knows he's going to get cut. Takes on Damian Maia in Brazil. Calls them animals. Says Brazilians are animals. Calls the place a dump. Boom. Works Donald Trump into every answer. Suddenly he's friends with Donald Trump Jr. Oh, did you get a call from the president? He said to Kamaru Usman, pre-jawbreak. I'll end with this. When I see clips of Jemele Hill and Bomani Jones talking and just shooting the stuff, I smile. Because I know that these two people are some of the best in sports media. Now, the haters on this channel will view that as a controversial statement. It's not. They are some of the most insightful when it comes to politics and sports. And seeing Bomani essentially part ways, let's say, with ESPN. And he now has his show, The Right Time on Wave, which everyone should be watching and listening to wherever you get your podcasts. Please go do it. Seeing the work that he did with ESPN and the voice that he brought, a sense of legitimacy, but also thinking about sports in a different way. That should be welcoming. Folks should want to hear that. And seeing how, Warner Brothers has completely revamped and essentially cut tons of shows, including Bomani's show. And he had Adam McKay, friend of the network, who was helping produce all of it. What I will say is this. Whatever network, it's Wave right now, whatever network lands these two, if they're up for joining another network or if they want to go independent, I fully support them. You are getting gems in this industry because there are two things that are going to happen. You are going to get the loyalists. You are going to get the stans who deeply appreciate what they do. I am one of them. But then you're also going to get the complete inverse of those emotions. And even if they don't want to admit it, they are going to continue going to the source and paying attention. For some networks, that's the best of both worlds. For others, it's a detriment. These are two of the finest our industry has produced. And I applaud them for being honest with us, open with us, and continuing the fight. They are awesome.